Working on cosplay, working on that. What's up, everybody? It's me, Grace, aka Zombie. Thank you for being here. As you can see, we have some cool looking boots on the table here. Actually got these from Target. I have actually used these before. I used them in my costume for Cosplay Melee. And they're super comfortable, and they're also super easy to stick things on. And I'm actually going to try kind of like a different method of adding some details on these today here, but I'm actually going to fit these pieces on with elastic so I can take off the parts and put them back on, and I can even reuse these for another cosplay. Looking at my reference, I'm actually using Hot Toys figure reference for my Star-Lord shoes today. I have some pretty good detail on them. I can see that they have some little stitching details on them, and then they also have kind of like a rectangle shape right across here. But looking at the design, it's actually super simple. So we're just gonna jump right in. It does require a couple of layers, but it's pretty easy pattern. So if you want to make your own Star-Lord shoes, it's gonna be pretty easy. And alright, so I'm gonna trace out this little pattern guy. I'm gonna make my pattern a little bit larger than my actual shoes because I can always cut it down a little bit. So I'm just gonna take my Sharpie with some craft paper that I have right here, kind of a little rectangle guy. As always, to make things easier, I'm gonna cut out this little piece of paper. Because guess what I can do? I can cut this in half so I have a symmetrical piece. I'm just gonna make like a little rectangle piece, and honestly, this little design reminds me a lot of my Sarah Ryder cosplay from Mass Effect. It has rounded edges, but it's still kind of a rectangle. And this might be way too big, but we can always cut it down. And there is my pattern. My very simple little rectangle pattern, but don't worry, it'll look more complex as we go along. I kind of just like to whittle down my patterns until they're just right. But sometimes you gotta remake them. A lot of my friends will like draft up a pattern in Photoshop, which I think is super cool. But I actually don't have a printer right now, so I usually just sketch out my patterns just because it's kind of like a quick, dirty way to do it. Okay, so looking on both sides, it looks like this is the right size for my little boot pattern right here. So this is actually like the only detail that's on top of the boot, believe it or not. It's kind of awesome. I can see that there are two indented parts that are on each side, and they almost go to the very, very end right here. I made my little half of a cylinder-ish oval, this crazy oval. Here, and I started from the inside, drew the outside, and now I'm gonna be folding this in half again, and it should show up, in theory, on both sides evenly. We'll see if this works. And I'm just holding each piece together really firmly as I cut. Oh, it worked! Yay! Nice, so now we have our two crazy oval pieces. And this is gonna be the top layer of our shoe part. And then we're gonna be putting an extra layer right underneath to make it even sturdier and to fill in these circles right here. But yeah, there it is. I'm super happy with that. I have some 6mm foam here, which I actually think will work perfectly. Silver on this black foam is going to show up. I'm going to pin this down just so all my corners don't flip up, since this is like a thinner craft paper. So this chrome pen, I've been using it for some weathering. I really like it. You can see this is freaking pigmented. This is just it on non-plasti dipped, non-painted, non-treated foam. It is like so bright. And I'm so bad, I bought a pack of silver Sharpies, and they're buried somewhere in all the supplies over here. And since this is like a much thinner foam, I wouldn't be too heartbroken with just using scissors for it. And I'm really going in with this armpit of the scissors right here, just so I have as even edges as I possibly can. So I have my cutting mat down under this paper. I'm gonna take my little X-Acto blade start cutting these little guys out of here. And I'm going around the edge of the Sharpie because that's my straightest line that I have. And I know I'll have some cleaning up to do in there, but I would call this shape a hot dog shape. Okay, so now I have these two little guys right here, and I'm gonna kind of go in with my crazy little standing stick guy, just kind of move it back and forth, and I'm just gonna round out these little inside edges right here. And after this is all done, I'll go over with a heat gun, and then we'll get all the little fuzzies out from sanding. Before hitting this with my heat gun, I am gonna add the second layer onto this, which is actually the first layer, just going to be going under these to fill in these two holes. And I'll be using some foam here that I totally just picked up from off the ground. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted. Look at that. That's a nice piece of foam right there. I'm just kind of looking at how I'm gonna glue these down right here. And I might actually just glue them straight onto this sheet and then cut out the excess foam around it. First things first, I'm gonna flip it over to the non-sanded side. A little bit of super glue around the edge right here. Ta-da! And flipping it over. So luckily, super glue is still pretty forgiving in this stage, so I can kind of squish everything around to where I want it. Do the same thing to my other side. I'm gonna start cutting out these guys, freeing it from my piece of foam. I'm just cutting this 2mm foam right along the edge of my 6mm foam. I'm just cutting it as flush as I possibly can. Here is piece number 1. Be free, my foam child! So now we have our two little foam guys right here. I'm just gonna use my heat gun and get rid of all of those little fuzzies. It may not be as apparent to you guys, but I can see it and I care about them. I want them gone. This will also help shape. This will also help shape my foam here. Now that all my fuzzies are all gone, I'm just shaping it with my hands and I'm making it into a little piece so it'll fit over my shoe, just like so. There is my little shoe piece. So this is like some 7.5 inches non-roll elastic. And I'm just pulling this around my boot right here. And it's elastic, so it'll stretch. That's nice. So there's that elastic piece around there. So I'm just gonna use that piece that I just cut as a measure to cut my second piece. So those are my two longer pieces that are going to be going on top. So I'm taking my little bits, my elastic, and I am going to attach some glue on my little edge right here. I'm going to flip it this part on the underside just so I can see where the glue's going. And so I don't burn myself, you know, the important stuff. Gluing it under, just like that. And I always have to make super careful that I'm gluing on the right side of the strap because it so often happens that I glue the wrong side. Now something I like to do just to reinforce this elastic right here, I'm going to take hot glue and glue over the edges right on each side there. Then these should be stuck on pretty darn well. Just waiting on these to dry. I had some compressed air. I'd make these dry really quick, but I'm just going to have to wait. That's okay. Let's get these on here. Ooh, I like how those fit on, but I know I'm gonna need another strap besides this one. Gonna need one that goes under the boot, so that's gonna be the next step. All right, so there is the front of that cool little guy right there. Now I'm gonna make a strap that goes under the shoe just for some added security. Take this little strap and loop it under the boot just like that. So that ideally should keep everything in place. Okay, so those are all glued. I'm letting those dry for a few. And my little strappy guys here, just waiting on that hot glue to dry. I am going to be using some puffy paint to make some fake stitching on here because they have lots of little cool stitching details and you can do it really quickly with some puffy paint. So this is Tulip brand Slick Dimensional Fabric Paint. I mean, it's awesome if you decide that you want to actually stitch your stuff as well. It's freaking badass. I've definitely hand-stitched a lot of things in my time, but you know, it's con crunch time. I'm gonna have to cut some corners. No real stitching for these boots. I put my little straps around it like so, and ta-da! I have my simple little top of my boot piece right there. It's about to get lit in here with this faux stitching. You can see this is what the nozzle looks like. So you have quite a bit of precision here, and it looks like it has stitching all around the edge, all around these guys right here, and some extra stitching in the middle, kind of like a little square pattern. And once you paint this over with Plasti Dip, it'll be really matte and it'll look like stitching. And what's cool about this stuff is you have a lot of control, so you can do really thick stitching, really thin stitching, whatever you want to do. It's also really cool if you want to do like really fine, tiny designs on armor. Oh yeah! As simple as these little pieces were to make, I'm really happy that they got done. And yeah, I might do some adjusting on the strapping just so it fits a little bit tighter, but I'll check once I fit my foot in there and everything. So that is it with all the construction, the puffy paint as the stitching on there. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this fun little project. I hope you guys, if you're working on something, can show me some of the stuff you're making on your own on all my social media that you can find right down below in my profile. Well, I'll see you guys next time. Bye!